The European Football Championships have given sports fans plenty of excitement this summer, but fears are growing that the tournament could speed up the spread of the Delta variant in Europe. With games taking place all over the continent and some massive stadiums at full or nearly full capacity, scientists are warning that the Euros have already led to a rise in infections.
The joy of Euro 2020 summed up by Scotland fans. They were euphoric when their team earned a point against arch-rivals England at Wembley. But their tournament came to an end soon after, and there was another sting in the tail. A COVID outbreak on and off the pitch. Scotland midfielder Billy Gilmour tested positive, forcing him into quarantine. A post-game chat meant England's Ben Chilwell and Mason Mount also had to isolate. Even more worryingly, it was later revealed almost 1,300 Scottish fans were infectious when they went to London. The World Health Organization says supporters travelling to games is a recipe for disaster.
How are people getting there? Are they travelling in large, crowded convoys of buses? Are they taking individual measures when they're doing that? What's happening after the games when people leave the stadiums? Are they going into crowded bars and pubs to watch the matches? If this mixing is happening among people who are not fully vaccinated and there is the presence of the virus, there will be cases.
This problem isn't restricted to the UK. Finnish authorities say at least 300 fans were infected while following their national team, mostly at their 2 matches in St. Petersburg. That's contributed to a sharp rise in new cases at home. But despite these connections between Euro 2020 and COVID outbreaks, UEFA is pressing ahead with increased stadium capacities for the semi-finals and final at Wembley. And politicians in several countries are furious. German Interior Minister Horst Seehofer accused the governing body of putting profits over public health.
I think that UEFA's position is utterly irresponsible. A sports association should say clearly, we don't want it this way, and we're reducing the numbers of spectators.
At Wembley on Sunday, one group of fans will be celebrating their country's great sporting success. But without further restrictions in London, fears of a COVID hangover will only rise.
I'm now joined by Felix Tamsut, a freelance sports journalist based in Cologne. Felix, why is UEFA able to override these concerns? I mean, push so hard, often successfully, to get so many fans into stadiums?
Well, UEFA would argue that the authorities are the one making the calls, but we've all seen that before the Euros, there was 2 cities in Bilbao and Dublin that were stripped of the right of hosting the tournament for not necessarily allowing fans into stadiums. And the message is pretty clear. And the message is UEFA wants fans, and it would use its measures it would use its tools that it had to apply pressure if necessary to make that happen, absolutely.
Does the economic benefit then of hosting the Euro matches give UEFA too much power over host countries?
It certainly does give UEFA lots of power. We all have to bear in mind that we are during the COVID pandemic, but given UEFA's vaccination rollout, some cities do expect the continent to get out of the corona crisis at some point in the future, and cities have an interest of showcasing what they have to offer to the world. So I would definitely argue that UEFA has this power, and I believe, be it directly or indirectly, this leverage is being used, absolutely.
Now, the number of new COVID-19 cases in the United Kingdom is now over 24,000. We haven't seen numbers like that since the end of January. How can health officials really justify increasing crowded stadiums? I mean, Wembley, the capacity 60,000, these massive fan gatherings, outside events, how can they be justified?
First of all, health authorities argue that the death rates are very, very low, which they are. But it has been drawing lots of criticism in England and abroad. I mean, Germany Chancellor Angela Merkel, France leader Emmanuel Macron, Italy leader Draghi have all voiced concerns over the number of infections and over the outcome and the repercussions that the Euro 2020 semi-finals and final would have on the continent as a whole. And I definitely think the last word hasn't been said in that regard. The games will be held in London, but the question is what's going to be the aftermath of the whole thing? And this remains to be seen, of course.
Of course, and it will take a few weeks to see the aftermath, of course, from the UEFA, from the Euros this year. Thanks very much. Felix Tamsett in Cologne.
Thank you.